Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out today's episode. Guys, today I want to give you some tips and advice on catching bass on a bluebird day. Just those days when there's no clouds whatsoever. It's super bright. You got high light intensity, and this creates a set of situations that sometimes can make it tough, sometimes it can make it good. And I just sort of want to give you guys an overview about how I approach fishing on those bluebird days, because you're going to encounter them in fishing and you got to make some adjustments. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, before we get started, quick invitation. I'd like to invite everybody to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Free and easy to do so, man. Right now, we've only got like 35% of the people that watch the channel are actually subscribed. So that's a big way to support the channel, free and easy, if you'd like to do that. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody else that has gone to the next level to support the channel by becoming a channel member. Channel members get private videos every week that aren't seen by the public, along with access to my email address that you can mail me for your personal fishing questions. So if you'd like to be a member, just go to my YouTube homepage, hit the join button or the membership button for information. So I really appreciate that. Okay, every day is different in bass fishing in terms of the conditions. That's why day in and day out, you can't really expect to go catch fish the same way every day. It's like you may go out, say you've got 2 days off of work. You got Friday and Saturday off. And you go out and you catch, 10 or 15 bass on Friday. And then the next day you go out there and you can't get a bite, or it's a lot tougher. And there may have just been some minor variation in the conditions. It could be, the wind could be a different direction. The wind could be a different speed. The light intensity may be different. Instead of like having a partly cloudy day, you got, a cloudy day, or say that you've got, some wispy cirrus clouds in the sky, and the next day you got cumulus clouds. So there's a lot of variables that change the bass's mood and behavior every day. But I want to talk about how to catch fish in bluebird conditions and, sort of my approach that I go to that. Now, when I think about bluebird conditions, I don't think in terms of it being like tough or good fishing, or I don't have any preconceived notions about how a bluebird sky is going to affect my day out there, because sometimes I want a bluebird day and sometimes I don't want a bluebird day. It depends upon the conditions that you're fishing. Now, here are some generalities that to remember as far as how to approach fishing on a bluebird day, depending upon a lot of different conditions. A lot of the success that you have on fishing on a bluebird day, it's going to depend a lot on the water temperature, because in general, what you're going to have is that the colder the water, the less a bluebird day will affect the fish. It's almost like the colder the water, it doesn't quite have the effect as it does if the water's a little bit warmer. And when I'm talking, I don't mean to the extremes. Let's say, for example, you're fishing in the wintertime and the water temperature is 45 degrees. A bluebird day is not going to affect the techniques that you use as it would to say if the water temperature was 65 or 70 degrees. And a lot of this has to do with the depth that the bass are in. So how I approach fishing on a bluebird day and the techniques and how I go about it is sort of follows. Let me explain a little bit. First of all, it depends on the technique that I'm going to use. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes it good and what makes it tough. If I'm fishing a technique where shade is key, sometimes I like a bluebird day. Now, say, for example, if I'm fishing a boat dock, and, everybody knows that docks throw off shade, all day long, depending upon the angle of the sun, they'll throw it off in different positions. But if you're fishing boat docks, most of the time, boat dock fishing is better on a bluebird day, because it really, really defines the shade lines on a bright day. If you're fishing boat docks on a cloudy day, you don't have those shade lines like you do on a bluebird day. And once you get those definitive shade lines, it really positions the bass and makes them easier to catch. I can pull up on a dock on a bluebird day, and you can look at that dock in a second and say, man, there's a bunch of shade there. There's a bunch of shade there. I'm going to pitch my jig right over there. Or the same if you're fishing, like a steep bank. And let's say you get out there at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's a bluebird day, and you look over to this bank to the left, and there's about 5 feet of shade coming off that bank because of the angle of the bank. And then you look at another bank across the lake and the sun's hitting it perfectly and there's no shade on it. The shade that's created by that steeper bank on a bluebird day does the same thing as like a dock. It'll position those fish in the shade. So when I'm fishing and I'm concentrating on shade, a bluebird day can be really good. Another time a bluebird day is good is if you're fishing for smallmouth bass. Smallmouth bass seem to prefer a bright bluebird day over any other type of condition, especially in clear water. It's sort of like a paradox. It's like bass in clear water love cloudy, rainy conditions, and smallmouth in clear water love sunny conditions. It's sort of a characteristic of the species out there. So there's a lot of different variations with that. And there's some other situations too where, you know, a bright bluebird day can work pretty good too. It's like, you know, if you're in a situation where the bass need to see a lure, let's say, for example, you're fishing, the place you're fishing, the water's really dirty. You got maybe 10 or 12 inches of visibility or even that much visibility. In a situation like that, a bright bluebird day is really good too, because it increases the visibility of the water for the bass to hone in on the bait a little bit more. And they don't need the shade because the stained water and the dirty water provides cover within itself. So a lot of times on a bright bluebird day, it's going to be a lot better fishing in dirty water than it would be if it's a cloudy day. So that's how I approach with that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, some of the conditions that are going to make a bright bluebird day tough fishing is if you have a bright bluebird day and you lose your wind under certain conditions. If you're, say for example, if you're fishing a topwater lure and you get a bright bluebird day with no wind, a lot of times that's going to make it really tough. If you say you're out there on your Friday fishing and it's partly cloudy and windy and you're catching them good on a spinnerbait or a chatterbait or a crankbait or some type of a moving bait, if you go out there the next day and it's a bright bluebird sky with no wind, you know it's going to be a lot tougher. So how bass bite in correlation with the bluebird sky a lot of times is dependent upon the wind as well. Wind and shade make bass make mistakes more. And if you have a bright bluebird day, you're going to do a lot better fishing on either the shady areas or the windy areas. It's just going to make it a lot better with that. And then there's gradients in between. It's not like you just have, you know, certain water clarities and certain water temperatures. You got everything that goes across the scale. You got water temperatures like here in Missouri, anywhere between the mid 30s up to 90 degrees. So anytime that you have that type of a temperature variation, a bright bluebird sky is going to have a bigger effect on it. Now, don't ever think that just because it's a bright bluebird sky that the fishing is going to be tough all the time, even if you're fishing those reaction baits. Because I've had some situations where, you know, I've caught them pretty decent on a bright bluebird day with not much wind or not, you know, anything like that. But it's a lot more situational. There might be, say for example, you're fishing a crankbait down a rocky bank, and the day before when it was cloudy, you were catching them really good, and then the bright bluebird day makes it a lot tougher. You're not getting near the bites. A lot of times you have to key on some type of a change in your bait color. That can make all the difference in the world. Let's say you're out there on your Friday and you've been catching some good fish on a blackback chartreuse crankbait, and you know it's been cloudy or heavy overcast, something like that. And then the next day, you know, you got your bluebird skies out there. Sometimes you can continue catching bass if you go to more natural colors, like, you know, some type of translucent color. So one of the first things you can do is, if you lose your clouds, always go to some type of a translucent lure color. I don't care what it is, if it's a jerkbait, if it's a topwater, if it's a crankbait, always go to translucent. You're going to do a lot better in any water temperature on a translucent color. Just makes a huge amount of difference with that. And another thing that I found out on a bluebird day with a reaction bait is sometimes you have to speed the bait up. You know, if you are using like a medium retrieve on a crankbait on a partly cloudy or cloudy day, on a bluebird day you might have to go to a medium fast stop and retrieve. Just speed it up a little bit so those fish can't have a chance to look at it too good. But another thing that I found about it, and this is how I know, because a lot of times if I'll take a picture of myself with a fish and I look back 3 or 4 or 5 years later at that picture, I take a note to the sky up there. And there's been a lot of times where, I look at a bright bluebird sky and I've caught some decent fish. So every single day's different as far as how the bass react to that. I mean, but usually, like I said, it's going to toughen it up quite a bit. One other thing, with the colors that we'll go over here, the translucents are going to work good on the hard baits, but anytime that you have a bright bluebird day with soft plastics or jigs or something like that, even if the water is stained, that's when I go to the more, natural looking colors. If I've got water visibility that's 12 or 15 inches and I got a bright bluebird day, I still might use a green pumpkin instead of like a black and blue or a June bug. You're going to get a lot more bites on those natural colors on a bluebird day than you will the darker colors like your blacks, your black and blues, your June bugs, your red bugs. Just seems like that increased water visibility, it makes it more appealing to the fish. And ultimately, that's what it does. A bright bluebird day increases the water visibility to the fish, increases their ability to see a lure, and sometimes that's not a good thing, because bass on a slow bait, if they have a chance to study it, they're not stupid. They can detect something that's fake. So when you have an increased visibility within the water column, sometimes that's what makes the fish a little bit tougher. But ultimately, like I said, the fish are always biting, guys. You just have to figure out the adjustments to make. Sometimes those adjustments are in lure colors, bait size, bait profile, areas that you're fishing. But don't get, the point of the video here, what I'm talking to make, is don't try to get a preconceived notion about how the fishing is going to be on a sunny day, because it can be all over the board. I've had some super tough days on sunny days. I've had some great days on sunny days. Just let the day unfold. That makes a big difference with it. And another thing that I'll leave you guys with, the success that you have on a sunny day, a lot of it depends on the proximity to a frontal system passage. If you have a frontal system passage that is on the way and you still sometimes have a sunny day, the fish can be pretty active and biting. But if you have a frontal system come through, cold front moves through, it blows out the clouds, and it gets to be a bright sunny day with a north wind, that's usually when it toughens up a little bit. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you guys out. We'll talk later.